It started on a quiet Monday morning, the kind of morning that usually carried peace. Samuel yawned, stretched, and reached out to touch his wife, Sandra. She was still asleep, looking so peaceful. But within seconds, that peace vanished. Something smelled off. He sniffed once, then again. It wasn't the kind of smell you could ignore. It was strong, thick, and strange. The kind that makes your nose twitch and your stomach turn. He sat up immediately, frowning. Maybe it's the toilet, he murmured to himself. He got up, walked into the bathroom, flushed the toilet twice, sprayed air freshener, but the smell stayed strong, almost mocking him. He came out, checked under the bed, lifted the curtains, even opened the windows wide for air. Nothing helped. The smell refused to move. He stood in the middle of the bedroom, rubbing his head in confusion. The more he tried to figure it out, the more frustrated he became. He stepped out to the sitting room, and instantly the air changed, clean, fresh, no trace of any odor. He blinked, baffled. What kind of nonsense is this? He took a few steps back into the bedroom, and boom, the smell slammed into him again. He stepped out again, fresh air. He was still trying to make sense of the mystery when Sandra's sleepy voice broke his thoughts. "Baby, why are you standing there like that?" she mumbled, walking out of the room in her nightwear, her voice lazy with sleep. Samuel turned to her, relieved to see her awake. "Morning, babe," he said, forcing a smile. But as she walked closer to him, his smile disappeared. That same thick odor hit him, stronger this time. He froze, his eyes wide, his mind slowly connecting the dots. He looked around, pretending to search for something again, hoping maybe he was wrong. But the moment she stepped into the sitting room, the smell followed her. His throat went dry. He quietly turned back into the bedroom, and just like that, the smell disappeared again. He stood there for a long moment, staring blankly at the wall, before whispering under his breath, "No way." The realization hit him like a punch. The smell wasn't from the room. It was coming from his wife. He swallowed hard. How on earth was he supposed to say that? You can't just wake up and tell your wife she smells bad. When Sandra came closer, he tried to act normal. He smiled awkwardly, scratching his neck. "Oh, babe," he said softly. "You should probably take a quick bath. Maybe the heat last night caused something. I also felt kinda sticky when I woke up." Sandra frowned, confused. "Really? But I took my bath late last night," she said, yawning. Still, she didn't argue. "Alright," she said simply, and went to the bathroom. Samuel let out a long sigh of relief. Maybe it was just morning odor. Maybe after a bath, everything would go back to normal. Minutes later, Sandra came out, wrapped in a towel, smelling faintly of lotion and perfume. She looked fresh, but the moment she walked past him again, the smell hit even harder. Samuel coughed, pretending to clear his throat, but inside he was panicking. What kind of smell becomes worse after a bath? Sandra noticed a sudden uneasiness. "What is it?" she asked, genuinely puzzled. He hesitated. "Sandra, I don't know how to say this, but something smells really bad." Her face changed immediately. "What do you mean something smells bad?" "I mean," he paused, afraid of how it would sound. "Like a strange odor. It's strong. It's actually coming from you, you know." Sandra froze, staring at him in disbelief. "What? Samuel, are you serious right now? I don't perceive anything." He tried to soften it with a laugh. Maybe my nose is acting up. Don't mind me." She looked at him quietly, hurt showing in her eyes. "Wow, so I smell now?" she asked under her breath. "Babe, no now," he said quickly, trying to fix it. "I didn't mean it like that. Maybe it's just the new cream or something. Let's not stress over it." To avoid turning it into an argument, Sandra forced a smile and said, "It's fine, but deep inside, she felt embarrassed. She kept sniffing her body discreetly, trying to see if she could smell what he smelled. But there was nothing. She smelled like soap, lotion, and perfume, nothing more. They both dressed up and ready for work, pretending nothing had happened, but the air between them felt weird. Awkward silence, fake smiles, and an invisible tension. At her office, Sandra greeted the receptionist cheerfully, like she always did. But this time, the receptionist barely smiled back. Her eyes flickered, her expression slightly uncomfortable. Sandra ignored it and went into her department. The moment she stepped through the door, the atmosphere changed. A few colleagues turned subtly. Someone coughed. Another adjusted her chair away. Sandra noticed the strained looks, but tried to stay confident. "Good morning, everyone," she said with a smile. "Morning," some replied faintly, their eyes darting around. Others just nodded and focused on their screens. Minutes later, her manager, Mr. Desmond, walked into her office. "Sandra, please, give me the client's report," he said, smiling professionally. "Of course, sir," she said, standing up to hand it over. But halfway through their conversation, he stopped talking. His expression twisted suddenly. He sniffed once, then frowned. "What's that smell?" he muttered. Sandra's heart skipped. "Sir? Did something spill here?" he asked, looking around. "Check your dustbin. Maybe something is rotting." Sandra bent down immediately, checking the bin, the floor, even under her desk. "Nothing, sir. Everything is clean." Desmond shook his head and brought out a small air freshener from his office drawer. He sprayed around the room generously. For a few seconds, the air felt better. But within minutes, the smell came back stronger. Now the other staff nearby started covering their noses subtly. One lady pretended to sneeze. Another whispered something to her colleague, and they both giggled. Sandra's chest tightened. She wanted to disappear. Trying to remain professional, Desmond said gently, "Miss Sandra, please, don't take this the wrong way. Maybe you should take the rest of the day off. Go to the hospital, just to be sure everything is fine." Sandra froze. Her mouth went dry. "Sir, He cut her off softly. "You're one of my best staff, Sandra, but I can't have clients coming in and complaining about smell. Please, just take care of yourself." That was the longest walk of her life. As she picked up her bag, she could feel everyone's eyes on her. Some whispered, some pretended to look busy. The shame was unbearable. But one person didn't look away. It was Gloria. Gloria walked up to her quietly, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder and said, "Don't let them get to you, okay? Maybe it's stress or something minor. You'll be fine." Sandra nodded, blinking back tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "Call me when you get home," Gloria added softly. "And please go to the hospital." Sandra forced a smile. "I will, thank you, Gloria." When she got home, she locked herself in the bathroom for almost an hour. She scrubbed her body until her skin felt raw. She changed her clothes, used strong perfume, opened every window, but deep down, she was terrified. By evening, she heard the sound of Samuel's car outside. She quickly adjusted her hair, hoping maybe this time the smell was gone. But the moment Samuel walked through the door and saw her, he stopped. His expression changed instantly. He covered his nose, his face tightening in discomfort. "Babe, what's happening?" he exclaimed. "What's all this smell?" Sandra's heart sank. "Oh God," she whispered. She told him everything. How her boss and colleagues had reacted. How she'd been sent home in shame. Samuel was shocked. A part of him felt guilty, but another part was relieved. At least, he now knew it wasn't crazy. The smell was real. That night, the odor filled the entire room. He tried to sleep beside her, but the air was thick, suffocating. He tossed and turned, his face buried in the pillow. Finally, around midnight, he got up quietly, picked up his pillow, and said softly, "Babe, I'm sorry. I just need some air. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight." Sandra didn't reply. She just turned to the wall, tears silently rolling down her cheeks. Sandra woke up the next morning feeling drained. Her eyes were swollen from crying half the night, and her heart felt heavy like she had swallowed a stone. The smell still clung to her body like it was part of her skin. She didn't even bother cooking breakfast. She just sat on the edge of the bed, staring blankly at the floor, wondering how her life had suddenly turned into a nightmare. When Samuel came out of the guest room, he looked exhausted too. He barely said a word as he dressed for work. The silence between them was deafening. "Are you going to the hospital today?" he finally asked. Sandra nodded slowly. "Yes, I'll go." He sighed and said, "Okay, please, find out what's wrong." Then he left, keeping a safe distance as he walked out. That small gesture, that space he kept, broke her heart all over again. Sandra went to the hospital immediately. The moment she stepped into the reception, the nurses began exchanging glances. One of them subtly reached for the air freshener beside the counter and sprayed it twice. Sandra's heart sank. Not here too. She forced a smile and approached the nurse. "Good morning, please. I want to see a doctor." Within minutes, she was ushered into a consulting room. Dr. Martins, a middle-aged man with glasses, greeted her politely and asked, "So, Mrs. Sandra, what brings you in today?" Sandra hesitated, embarrassed to even say it out loud. "Doctor, it's going to sound strange, but everyone says I smell bad, even my husband." Dr. Martins raised his brows. "Okay, do you perceive it yourself?" "No, sir," she said softly. "That's the thing. I don't perceive anything, but people react whenever I come close." He leaned back, thinking, let's run some tests first, okay? They checked her blood, urine, and skin. Everything possible. 2 hours later, the result came out clean. No infection, no body chemistry disorder, no explanation. The doctor looked confused. "Medically, you're fine. Everything looks perfect." Sandra's shoulders slumped. "But, sir, can't you smell it?" she asked quietly. Dr. Martins hesitated, then spoke truthfully. "Yes, I do perceive it, but I can't explain it. It's not from any medical condition I know of, okay?" Sandra's heart shattered. She covered her face with her palms, tears spilling down uncontrollably. "So, what do I do now?" "I'll refer you to a dermatologist," he said, trying to sound professional. "But honestly, I think you should rest. Maybe it's stress related." "Stress?" she whispered bitterly. "So, stress now smells like this?" He didn't reply, and she didn't wait for another word. She grabbed a bag and left, humiliated. When she got home, she didn't even remove her shoes. She sat on the couch and cried until her voice went hoarse. Then she dragged herself into the bathroom again. Another long, painful bath with hot water and lemon, hoping maybe this time something would change. It didn't. If anything, the smell got worse. By the time Samuel came home that evening, she ran to meet him with a weak smile. "Baby, I went to the hospital. They said everything is fine." He dropped his bag slowly. "But the smell is still there," he said quietly. Sandra's lips trembled. "I don't know what else to do." Samuel nodded slowly, his tone weary. "Sandra, I love you, but this thing, it's becoming too much. I can't even eat. I can't breathe properly when you're around." Her face fell. "So, what are you saying?" He rubbed his neck, avoiding her eyes. "I just need some time. Maybe I should stay with a friend for a few days." She stared at him like her word had just ended. "You're leaving me?" It's not like that," he said quickly. "I just need space to think." Sandra turned away before he could see her tears. "Go ahead," she whispered. "Do what you have to do." That night, Samuel packed a few shirts, a pair of jeans, and left the house. The moment the door closed, silence swallowed everything. Sandra and Samuel had been married for 5 years. Their love wasn't perfect, but it was strong. Sandra was the clean, organized type, the kind of woman who folded bedsheets like it was an art form. She was always neat, always smelling fresh. At work, she was known as the office sunshine, always the first to help, always cheerful. In fact, she was just a few weeks away from being promoted to head of sales operation, a position she had dreamed of for years. But all that changed within days. The company froze her promotion, asking her to take care of herself first. Out of frustration, Sandra called her mom one morning. "Mommy, please come. I can't take it anymore," she cried over the phone. When her mother arrived that afternoon, she hugged Sandra and immediately jumped back, covering her nose. "Jesus Christ, Sandra! What is this smell?" Sandra broke down on the spot, sobbing into her hands. "Mommy, I don't know. Everyone says I smell so bad, but I can't even perceive anything." Her mother's face twisted with worry and fear. "My daughter, this is not ordinary. This is spiritual." She took her hands. "Pack your things, Sandra. You are following me right now." That was how the church marathon began. They went from one prayer house to another. Some prophets said it was marine spirit attack. Others said she was cursed. And some, the wicked ones, demanded money. One evening, they arrived at a small prayer camp. The air there smelled of burning incense. The prophet, a large man in a white garment, welcomed them in a booming voice. "My daughter," he said dramatically, "I can perceive it already. This smell is not physical. It is spiritual filth." Sandra sat there quietly, her eyes red from crying. "Please, man of God, help me. I have lost my job. My husband left me. I can't even step outside again." The prophet nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing like he could see through her. This is serious. The enemies have clothed you with a garment of reproach." He asked for a spiritual cleansing offering, 100,000 naira. Sandra hesitated, but her mother pressed her hand. "We have to do it, Sandra," she whispered. "If this will bring peace, let's not argue." After the payment, the prophet brought out a small golden bottle filled with a thick liquid. "This," he said proudly, "is divine perfume, spiritual scent, heavenly fragrance. Once you apply it on your body, every odor will vanish." Sandra looked at it like it was her last hope. "How should I use it, sir?" "Rub it on your body morning and night," he said. "Then, thank God for your freedom." That night, she applied it exactly as instructed. The perfume burned slightly on her skin, but she didn't care. She wanted her life back. The next morning, she stood before the mirror, smiling faintly. "Maybe this is the day," she whispered. She dressed up neatly and went back to the office. At first, everyone greeted her normally. She felt relieved. She even smiled at the security guard. But as she entered the main department, she saw it happen again. The whispers, the side glances, the silent hand movements covering noses. Her smile faded instantly. Even Mr. Desmond's face fell the moment she entered his office. "Sandra," he said slowly, "I thought you were getting treatment." Sandra's hands trembled. "Sir, I'm trying my best." He sighed. "Please, take more time off. You can't walk like this." She left quietly, her shoulders shaking. When she got home, she threw the spiritual scent in the bin and cried until her voice cracked. A month passed, nothing changed. Her position was officially given to Gloria. Samuel stopped coming home completely. He only called daily, short, awkward conversations that ended in silence. Her mother kept praying, but Sandra could see fear in her eyes too. Neighbors started gossiping. When she walked past, people whispered, "That's the woman that smells." Children laughed at her on the street. She stopped going out altogether. Each day felt like a punishment she couldn't explain. By the end of that month, Sandra was a shadow of herself. She had stopped checking her phone. She had stopped bathing with perfume soap or scrubbing endlessly in the bathroom. Nothing worked, so she gave up. She sat alone most days, staring blankly at the ceiling fan. That smell, that thick, invisible smell, had now become part of her existence. Sometimes she would whisper, "God, what did I do wrong? Who did I offend?" No answer. Her mother came around occasionally, bringing food and praying for her. But even she now stayed outside the house longer before entering. One night, after crying for hours, Sandra broke down on her knees. She didn't pray like a churchgoer that night. She prayed like a woman at the end of her life. "God, please, what did I do?" She wept. "Why me? Why did you allow this shame? Haven't I suffered enough?" Her voice echoed through the empty room. Then silence. She sat there on the floor, rocking herself gently, whispering, "Please, Lord, help me. I have no one else." At some point, her tears dried on her cheeks and she fell asleep on the bare floor. That night, something strange happened. In her dream, she saw herself standing in an open field, a dark, lonely place with no light anywhere. Suddenly, two figures appeared, a woman and a man. They were laughing, the kind of laughter that sends chills down your spine. Sandra tried to move closer to see their faces, but her body felt heavy. Then, before she could speak, they both began scooping handfuls of dirt and throwing it at her. She screamed, "Stop! Please stop!" But no sound came out of her mouth. Her lips moved, but her voice was gone. They kept throwing the dirt, laughing louder, faster, until she was completely covered from head to toe. She fell to her knees, choking, trying to breathe. And then she heard a faint whisper, a voice she couldn't recognize. It said, "The dirt they threw on you is the source of your odor." The voice faded, the laughter stopped, the darkness swallowed everything. Sandra woke up with a loud gasp, her heart pounding like a drum. Sweat drenched her entire body. She sat up immediately, trying to catch her breath. "What kind of dream is this?" she whispered, trembling. But as she sat there, the words echoed in her mind. "The dirt they threw on you is the source of your odor." She couldn't forget it. All morning, she kept replaying the dream in her head. Who were those two people? Why were they laughing like that? And why did she feel like she had seen their faces before, but couldn't remember where? She tried to brush it off, but something in her heart said, "Don't ignore this." That night, she knelt again. "God, please, if you're trying to tell me something, show me clearly," she whispered. She prayed until she fell asleep again. No dream this time, just a strange peace that felt unfamiliar. It wasn't happiness, but it wasn't pain either. Something had shifted inside her. The next morning, she woke up with one thought: I need answers. 3 days later, she forced herself to step out to the market for the first time in weeks. She wore a face mask, a scarf, and long sleeves, praying silently that nobody would notice her. People still gave her space, but she ignored it. She bought a few things quickly: rice, beans, soap, and was about to leave when she heard a calm male voice behind her. "Madam," the voice said gently, "please, wait." She turned. It was an elderly man, probably in his 60s. He had soft eyes that carried something she hadn't seen in a long time: genuine concern. "Good afternoon, sir," she said politely, adjusting her bag. He looked at her quietly for a few seconds, then said, "Please, don't be offended, but you smell terrible." Sandra froze, embarrassed. "Sir, I know," she said weakly, almost tearing up. "Everybody keeps saying that, but I don't even perceive it." He nodded slowly. "Yes, because it's not ordinary." Her heart skipped. "What do you mean?" He looked around briefly to be sure nobody was listening, then said quietly, "Someone close to you did this. Someone you trust. It was done out of jealousy, to disgrace you." Sandra's hands trembled. "You already have the dream, haven't you?" Her mouth opened. How did you know, sir?" He smiled faintly. "When you are spiritually attacked, God always sends a small sign, A dream, a stranger, a whisper? You must pay attention. Sandra's eyes filled with tears. Sir, please, what should I do? I have prayed. I have gone to churches. I have done everything. The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. Read the Psalms at midnight for 7 days. He said softly, don't miss it. Speak with faith, not fear. The truth will reveal itself. Sandra took the paper with shaky hands. Thank you, sir. God bless you. He smiled again, nodded, and walked away into the crowd. When she opened the paper later that night, it contained 3 passages, Psalm 35, Psalm 51, and 91. She placed the paper on her chest, knelt by her bed, and began to pray. The first night was hard. She struggled to stay awake, her body weak from days of emotional exhaustion, but she pushed through. She opened the Bible and started with Psalm 35. Her voice trembled as she read, Contend, O Lord, with those who contend with me. Fight against those who fight against me. Tears began to roll down her cheeks again. She prayed from the depth of her pain. God, if anyone has done this to me, let your truth speak for itself. Please, don't let me die in shame. Every night, she repeated the same prayer. The neighbors must have thought she had gone mad, crying and praying loudly at midnight. But she didn't care anymore. By the 4th night, something happened. She began to smell it. She was shocked at how terrible it smelled. She got angry and intensified in praying. By the 6th night, she slept deeply, peacefully for the first time in weeks. And when she woke up the 7th morning, something strange happened. The smell was gone, completely gone. She stood still for a long time, confused. She smelled her arms, her clothes, her pillow, nothing. She laughed, she cried. She ran to the bathroom, poured water on herself again just to confirm. Still, nothing. For the first time in a long time, Sandra felt human again. For days, Sandra couldn't stop smiling. She kept smelling her arms, her clothes, her pillow, still nothing. It felt too good to be real. By the 3rd day, she decided to test it, just to be sure she was totally free. She went outside and sat among her neighbors for the first time in months. Nobody moved away, nobody whispered, nobody covered their nose. Her heart swelled with gratitude. She ran back inside and fell on her knees. God, thank you, she sobbed. You did it. You actually did it. That night, she prayed again, not out of desperation this time, but out of pure gratitude. Yet, deep down, she still needed to know why. Who had done it? Who hated her enough to cause her life so cruelly? The next morning, Sandra woke up feeling happy. She took a bath slowly, humming under her breath, and dressed for work. When she stepped into the office, heads turned. People who used to whisper now greeted her openly. There was no wrinkling of noses, no awkward distance. The air felt new, clean, peaceful. Sandra couldn't stop smiling. It wasn't pride, it was relief. But the real shock came when Gloria walked in. Gloria froze mid-sentence the moment she saw Sandra. Her face drained of color. Her eyes widened. She gripped the edge of her desk like someone trying not to fall. Sandra, she whispered, her voice shaky. You're fine? Sandra smiled faintly. Yes, I'm fine. Right there, in front of everyone. Gloria broke down. She dropped to her knees, tears pouring freely. I'm sorry, she cried out, loud enough for the whole office to hear. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for it to go this far. People turned, confused and stunned. The manager rushed out of his office. What's going on here? Gloria kept weeping, her words tumbling out between sobs. I was jealous. I didn't want her to get that promotion. I went somewhere. Someone told me they could make her smell bad so people would avoid her. I swear, I didn't know it would destroy her like this. The room went dead silent. Sandra stood there, frozen, every muscle in her body shaking. She couldn't even cry. She just watched Gloria. The same Gloria who showed her care when others laughed at her, now kneeling in front of everyone, begging for forgiveness. The manager's face darkened with disgust. You did what? Gloria couldn't even answer. She just kept crying. Without another word, he called security. Take her out. She's done here. 2 guards walked her out as she sobbed uncontrollably, pleading. Nobody spoke. Nobody stopped them. Sandra stood quietly, trembling. When the room finally settled, her manager turned to her gently and said, Sandra, your promotion stands, and on behalf of everyone here, I am sorry for how you were treated. Sandra nodded slowly, still dazed. Thank you, sir. That night, when she got home, she sat on her bed and wept, not out of pain this time, but out of deep, overwhelming gratitude. She whispered, God, you truly fight for those who can't fight for themselves. She learned that envy hides behind smiling faces and not every helping hand is sincere. But she also learned that when God decides to vindicate you, He doesn't do it quietly. He makes your enemies confess in the open. As for Gloria, she was sacked that same day and left the office in tears. And Samuel, the husband who once couldn't stand the smell, came back home humbled. He sat beside her, eyes wet, holding her tightly. I'm sorry for not staying through with you, he whispered. Sandra smiled faintly, her eyes soft. It's okay. I was angry when you left at first, but when I finally perceived it myself, I understood. Honestly, I hold no grudge against you. That smell was terrible. If I were in your shoes, I might have done the same thing. She looked at him and sighed gently. Anyway, we've both learned our lesson. He nodded, tears gathering in his eyes. Never again, I will stand by you no matter what. Sandra smiled again, leaned her head on his shoulder, and for the first time in months, she felt at peace, truly at peace. That night, she slept with the windows open, the air cleaned, and her heart finally free. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please give it a like, drop a comment, and share with your friends, your family, and your loved ones. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.